Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, one of the things that can push a good build into being a great build in Diablo 4 is Mythic Uniques. Specifically, having the right one of these drop for your setup can make a massive difference. These are the rarest kinds of item in the game, but if you know where to get them, they are at least an achievable goal. That said, this season, Season 9, players have been reporting what seems to be even lower drop rates on Mythic Uniques than Season 8, which is definitely a drop rate decline from the season before that, and so on and so forth, so it's sort of worth mentioning that while these are farmable, do expect to be farming them for a fair bit of time before you get to see one drop. That said, what are the Mythic Uniques for those who have been out of the loop for a couple of seasons? Maybe you just want to know if anything is new or anything's changed, so here they are. We've got the Doombringer, which is a one-handed sword, Shattered Vow, which is a polearm, and Endariel's Visage, which is the poison puddle creating helmet, Harlequin Crest, which is just a fantastic helmet in general, Heir of Perdition, which is just a massive damage multiplier on a helmet, the Shroud of False Death, most prominent for increasing every passive in your skill tree by 1 level as a chess piece, Tyraels Might, which is a fantastic chess piece for resistances, the Melted Heart of Selig, which I never want ever, but always have drop at least 3 times per season, the Ring of Starless Skies, which is super strong in pretty much any build that spends resources, the Grandfather, which is a massive critical damage multiplier on a 2-handed sword, a Havarion, the Spear of Lycander, which is actually a staff, and it grants random shrine effects, and then Nessicum, the Herald, a mythic unique glaive exclusive to Spiritborn, with some funky effects based around vulnerable, critical hits, and overpower. The main farmable source to actually find mythic uniques then is lair bosses. The lair boss system was redesigned in Season 8, and this is how it looks currently. Every lair boss has a quote-unquote decent chance of dropping a mythic unique, which is to say from most sources in the game, getting a mythic unique drop is astronomically lucky. Getting one from here, from one of these guys, is something that you can expect to see once every probably 75 to 150 kills right now on Torment 4, as is the general drop rate that players have been experiencing. That said, it's worth mentioning that while all of the lair bosses have an enhanced mythic unique drop rate, the initiate tier bosses, which is the top row here, have a lower drop chance for mythics than the greater lair bosses, which is the middle tier, and then the greater lair bosses also have a lower mythic drop chance than Belial, who stands alone at the top. You may immediately think that means that you should do whichever one is the highest tier you have access to, but realistically in practice it is a little bit different than that. If you have Belial materials, you absolutely should kill Belial as long as you are strong enough to do so. He has the best chances of dropping mythics, and he doesn't have any funky stuff going on that makes the fight take longer than is necessary for your stats to overcome his stats, so you can run him on repeat very efficiently. However, Duriel and Dariel and the Harbinger of Hatred, all of the ones in that middle tier, have at least one forced invisibility phase within their fight, meaning even if you could do infinite damage in a single hit, you could not one-shot those 3 bosses. You would still have to do their supplementary phases, and that slows down each kill pretty dramatically. Then for the initiate tier bosses, there is no forced invincibility phases once again, so basically, if you have Belial materials, you should run Belial. If you don't have Belial materials and you can choose between any of the other bosses, you should actually do the initiate tier bosses specifically, because it's just far more time efficient to do even 2 of them for each one of the greater lair bosses that you would otherwise be doing, and they definitely have higher than half the drop chance, so if your goal is mythic uniques, it's either Belial or the littler guys. That said, with that knowledge, it also helps to know that as of last season, they added the ability to teleport to any lair boss's location from your map nicely and easily, and we should also talk about the Lair Keys themselves. Belial is the best source of mythic uniques, but the Lair Keys that are required to open his chest are the least directly farmable. His keys come from kills against his lesser version, which has a chance to show up after any other lair boss is killed. So essentially, as you are running different bosses, you have a pure luck chance of having Belial show up at the end and drop one of his keys. It takes 2 of his keys to open his chest. For all of the other lair bosses, if you had one of their materials drop, you can actually see where they come from by hovering over them in your inventory and how many you need. The main activities for Varshan's Malignant Hearts are Whispers of the Dead Hands In, and the Grotesque Debtors that sometimes spawn when you complete Grim Favors. Living Steel is dropped mostly from chests during Helltide, and is used to open Gregor's chest. Exquisite Blood is mostly dropped in Legion events and from the Blood Maiden in Helltide, and that's used to open Lord Zir's chest. The Beast in Ice requires Distilled Fear, which mostly comes from Nightmare dungeons, Judicator's masks are used to open Urivar's chest, and these have no specific particular drop source. All of these bosses in the Initiate tier require 12 of their Lair Key to open the chest. Then we have the next tier, which requires 3 of their keys. Shards of Agony are used for Duriel's chest, and these come from defeating either Varshan or Gregor. Pincushion Dolls are used for opening Andariel's chest, and these come from defeating either Lord Zir or the Beast in Ice. And then finally, the Aberrant Hearts are for the Harbinger of Hatred's chest, and these come from defeating Urivar. As well, there are Stygian Stones as a material, which can drop when defeating Initiate tier lair bosses, and these can be turned into a greater lair boss key at the Alchemist when you find them. Aside from those specific drop sources, the other main one is from the Undercity activity when using the Tribute of Titans. This tribute guarantees Lair Key drops at the end, and if you do it in a group with people, you can then also do the bosses that follow in a group too, and that's just more efficient on the whole. On the note of the Undercity activity, however, let's talk about the ways that you can get Mythic Uniques outside of the lair boss system. And the singular best drop rate of Mythic Uniques in the game, even including lair bosses, is actually the Tribute of Ascendance. This can be used at the Undercity to give you a bunch of uniques at the end of your run, with a not guaranteed but extremely high chance of having a Mythic Unique drop as well. These tributes are a rare drop in themselves with no way to directly target them really other than just doing lots of Whispers of the Dead, but if you get one of them, you should absolutely run this tribute, and if you get one that is listed as United instead of Resolute, that means that you can do it with other people, so invite some friends to partake as well. And they can get a Mythic Unique too. So if you have these tributes, you definitely want to run them, simple as that. But the tributes themselves are a very RNG drop. That said, the other source worth talking about for Mythic Unique drops is the Purveyor of Curiosities. The drop rate here is much lower than it was a couple of seasons back, but this vendor can produce a unique, and any unique has a chance of instead rolling to be a Mythic Unique. So if you have absolutely nothing else that you care about spending your Murmuring Obols on, just spam them into the cheapest slots here to give yourself a bunch of potential rolls at a Mythic Unique. That said, there is one more way to get Mythic Uniques, which is by crafting them, and you can do this in 2 different ways. Both of these methods require 2 Resplendent Sparks, and Resplendent Sparks come from one of 4 places. There is a Resplendent Spark from the final Season Journey reward. There is 1 Resplendent Spark from the final cache on the Seasonal Reputation track, which you can do on different characters as well. There is 1 Resplendent Spark the first time that you defeat the Echo of Lilith boss on Torment difficulties each season, and then you also get a Resplendent Spark anytime that you salvage a Mythic Unique item. At the Blacksmith, you can trade in 2 Resplendent Sparks and 50 million gold to get a randomly rolled Mythic Unique, any of the ones that can exist in the pool that your character can use. This may sound like a bit of a ridiculous use of sparks, but given the way that the other option is looking right now this season, it's not actually that crazy. The other way to use Resplendent Sparks then is to craft Mythic Uniques through the Jeweler, and here you can actually choose which Mythic Unique you want to craft through this method, so that may sound like it's ideal, but now you also require 18 more crafting materials, which is specifically 6 copies of 3 different runes. The runes that you want being different for each Mythic Unique. The main issues with this are, first, while runes do drop, and they do drop even more now in Season 9 because the developers did buff drop rates for runes, both in lair bosses and in the rune boosting tribute for Undercity, but you will still take a hell of a lot of farming to get that many of those specific runes without trading with other players. So the next thought is, how difficult is trading? Well, the main issue with that is that this season's trade economy is absolutely busted due to some sort of duplication glitches that were going on right near the start. And it's to the point where, let's say that you want the Ring of Starless Skies, this needs 6 of the Ohm rune. At this specific moment in time, the Ohm rune is going for around 500 million gold. This means for 6 of them, you would need 3 billion gold, and then you would still need 12 more runes that are granted cheaper than that, but that is still only 1 component that's required to craft the Mythic Unique that you want. And for some runes, it is much worse than that. I have seen some of these legendary runes selling for up to 1 billion gold, which means that their attached Mythic Unique craft is upwards of 6 billion gold to do. All of this to say, rune crafting for specific mythics is something that you'll only really get to do this season if you are either insanely lucky on your rune drops, or if you work the trade markets like it's your day job. Otherwise, you're pretty much just better stuffing 2 Resplendent Sparks and 50 million gold into the Blacksmith each time that you have them, and hope that it makes the Mythic Unique that you actually want to use just at random. That pretty much does it for today then, everyone. Your guide to Mythic Uniques in Season 9 of Diablo 4, where to get them, how to make them farmable, and what you can do about crafting them as well. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and hopefully it helps you achieve your goals within Season 9. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.